I'll just say a quick prayer before we started. You're welcome to the maiden edition of Lawyers in the Corporate Space webinars. The aim of this project is to help and encourage lawyers in the corporate space. By that, we mean anybody who is not in active private practice to be more efficient in the work they do. How is so that they can grow professionally, be more efficient, so that they can share experiences amongst themselves. And if we are blessed to have a pioneer like we have today, then we get to hear from them and learn, essentially to be more effective in our output. Today, we're just going to talk generally about the corporate lawyer, generally the experiences. But subsequently, we'll try and pick specific topics that we can talk about. And we hope to also help people specifically. If you send us questions, if you send us topics that you'd like us to discuss, we'll take it on board and we'll be able to have webinars that can solve specific and direct problems as well. So with time, we'll talk about maybe moving from firm private practice to the corporate space. We'll talk about transitioning from school to the corporate space. We'll talk about how the dynamics might be different in a public company as against a private company or in a government company. We'll talk about disciplinary proceedings. We'll talk about institution-specific needs relevant to certain regulators. So maybe those in the lotteries, those in insurance, those in tax, for instance. We'll try and handle all of these. So once again, you're all very welcome. I'm hoping that we'll have a very, very fruitful, I'm not hopeful, I'm expectant. I know we will, because we have a very good pioneer in our midst. My name is Bridget Nidoff. I've been a lawyer for 8 years, going on 8. I started with Intraco and Co. I did about 3 years there. And then for money reasons, it sounded mundane, but I just wanted a provident fund. So for money reasons, I moved to corporate. The opportunity came, why not? Let's try something new. And then I moved to the corporate space. When I came here, I had to do a little learning. I was the only lawyer. I am still the only lawyer here. And I find that it is real for a lot of people. I read a certain report about corporate lawyers in the US, and most companies have just one lawyer, most private companies. So it's quite a common thing. So I realized we needed more mentorship in this space. So that's what gave birth to this idea. I'm now with Sense Energy, I'm a corporate lawyer here. Sense Energy, I've been here for about 4, going on 5 years. That's about me. You can find me on LinkedIn, and please feel free to give us feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, so please feel free to give us feedback. Today, we'll be talking about the career and growth of the corporate lawyer. And we have our very own Mr. Francis Yalley Esquire to take us through that. So, Mr. Yalley, you're welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting the invitation.
It's my pleasure.
So Mr. Yalley is the Director of Legal Services at the Volta River Authority. But that's all I'm going to say about him. I'll let him talk about himself, his education and professional background, the work he does with the Volta River Authority, and then the questions and guidance will flow from there. Mr. Yalley.
Thank you very much. One of the most uncomfortable things I find difficult to do is to talk about myself. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. I come from very humble beginnings. I started life as a teacher, primary school teacher. After secondary school, I went to training college. Started life as a teacher. I then moved on to the where I read the diploma in public relations. So I moved from the classroom to the office as a public relations officer. Later I left for the university, came back and became an administrator for a while, a few years with the Ghana Education Service. Then In 1999, I changed jobs, joined the Volta River Authority as an assistant administrative officer, rose through the ranks to senior administrative officer. Whilst at VRA, I studied law. It was difficult combining school with work, but somehow I managed to pass out as a lawyer in 2007, been practicing for 16, getting on 17 years. After even before I became a lawyer, I moved from administration, both general administration to project administration. I was the project administrator for the Danida VRA TDC project, training and development project. And then subsequently, I went into procurement with the procurement department for a while. And then I joined the legal services department as counsel, rose through the ranks, counsel, senior counsel, principal counsel, manager, power business, and then finally now, director. I will not complete this introduction if I don't talk about my family. I am happily married with 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy. I celebrated my 30th wedding anniversary just this past Saturday. And I've just come back from my second honeymoon.
Oh, that's where you were. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, we had a test run and then a pre-interview, and he was away in a colded location. Okay, so that makes sense. Mr. Yalley, altogether, how many years have you been a lawyer?
16, getting on 17.
And you've been with VRA throughout your working, the legal career?
Throughout.
So you weren't one of those people who moved from firm to corporate space?
Not at all.
Did you ever consider that, moving?
No, I didn't, for several reasons. At the time I passed out of law school, I was already a family man with children. I didn't want to go and risk starting life without a reliable salary. And I was already on a reliable salary. So I don't want to take that risk. If I were younger at the time I passed out, maybe I would have considered it, but it never crossed my mind, not once.
You mentioned that you first did teaching. I've seen your CV, you did a bit of journalism before ending up in law.
That's correct.
Do you begrudge the journey that you had to go through so many loops to get to, and whether you always wanted to be a lawyer in the first place?
I've always wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, I lived a lawyer uncle for a while. I used to, when I was on holidays, carry his books to court and all that. I've always wanted to be a lawyer. One of the attractions, allurements to the profession was the wig and the gown. And I had promised myself that I'll always be a lawyer. Unfortunately, when I was going to university, I couldn't make the grade to be a lawyer. Then, I think in 1981, 82, the requirements for getting into law faculty was aggregate 8 for gentlemen, and I think, 7 for gentlemen and 8 for ladies. I made aggregate 10, so I didn't qualify. So I veered into sociology with political science, but I had always wanted to be a lawyer. But I don't begrudge the journey at all. It's been an interesting one, and I have built vast experience that I realize on hindsight is helping me with my current practice.
Yeah, I think my journey was similar. I did English and psychology, and I would not give it up for anything in the world. I'm still glad that I was able to have that undergrad education. Yeah.
I'm especially happy about my teaching antecedents.
Okay.
Very, very happy.
Okay, so Mr. Yalley, to you, who is a corporate lawyer? If you had to define it.
Yeah, well, a corporate lawyer provides legal services to companies, various aspects of legal services. So he's like a legal consultant to a company. He's the one to whom the company relies on to ensure compliance issues, to ensure regulatory matters are taken care of, to ensure due diligence is done on all transactions with third parties, to be the advisor on generally legal affairs. So the only difference between a corporate lawyer and a lawyer anywhere else is that the corporate lawyer offers legal expertise to a specific company.
So the company is your client, that's against in a private firm
where the world is your client.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So the company lawyer would help the company navigate through the legal complexities and compliance issues with applicable lawyer.
What are your job responsibilities as the director? And you can also mention things you have done as manager and as senior counsel. So we have an idea exactly what you do.
Okay. So let me start with when I was a manager, because that was when I got into leadership, if you like. My company is structured, the legal services department in my company is structured into 3 subsections. We have the power business section, where I was a manager for about 6-7 years. The power business section is the section, my company's main mandate is to generate electricity. And so we deal with third parties. So the power business section is the section that deals with third parties transactions as far as electricity generation is concerned. So we do things like, reviewing power purchase and sales and purchase agreements, power and energy exchange agreements, power supply agreements, gas sale agreements, even some financial agreements, because we need money, we need to go for loans and other grants to buy fuel to generate power, and so on and so forth. So that's the power business section. We also have the corporate matters section that deals with internal VRA affairs. The clients are mainly internal, HR issues, procurement issues, etc., disciplinary issues, and so on and so forth. And the third section is when rubber hits the road and push gets to shove, and we have to go to court. The litigation section, we are in the process of changing the nomenclature. We will now want to call it the dispute resolution section, because we do other things apart from litigation. And so when I was manager power business, I had 4 lawyers working under me. Presently, the LSD Legal Services Department has 11 lawyers.
Wow.
Yeah, 11 lawyers, including myself. So myself and 10 others. And each section has about 3 lawyers. So I had 3 lawyers. Then it was 4. I had 4 lawyers working under me. When the assignments come, assignments like either being a part of an evaluation committee, negotiation committee, or reviewing contractual documents, etc., etc., it is sent to me. Then I look at the assignment and then I decide who does what and distribute it among the 3 or 4 lawyers working under me.
Okay.
When they finish and they review and bring their advice or their opinion, I look at it. If I have a difference in opinion, I won't say I disagree, because no 2 lawyers think alike. If I have a difference in opinion, I call the lawyer involved and we discuss it, lawyer to lawyer. Lawyers are law is the most opinionated profession you can ever get. Every lawyer has an opinion. And so we sit down and we discuss and we see whether your opinion is based on applicable law. And when I agree with your opinion, or when I'm able to convince you to alter it, we get a final product. And then I put a memo on it and send it to my director. So basically that's what we do. When they go for negotiation meetings and they come back, they report to me, we discuss the issues, and then we find out whether the way they are advising is the way to go or not. And we had bi-weekly meetings with lawyers in the section who will brief me on what they are doing. And then we will discuss and advise the way to go, the adjustments to make. We try to get a common position on issues.
Okay.
So that was what I was doing as a manager. But now as a director, I'm doing something similar, but on a broader scale. I will assign all assignments. Thankfully, in my organization, I hear it doesn't happen in some other organizations. Thankfully, in my organization, no transaction, especially with third parties, are done without passing through the legal services department. My chief executive will not sign any document if he hasn't seen a memo from me saying I have reviewed it and I find it appropriate. So everything comes through me as a first stop. And then I look at it and determine which section has to handle it, and I distribute it to them. I do a few myself. Those that come from the executive to me, I do the review myself, but otherwise, it's sent to the 3 sections. When they finish their reviews and opinions and advice, etc., it comes back to me, and I have to read each and every one of them. At first, I was only doing that for 3 or 4. I have to do that for all 10.
Oh, no.
They have brought their opinion. I will have to tell the chief, it's okay. Before I can say that, I must know what it is and whether I agree with it. So that when the chief calls me and says, well, you give us this opinion, why do you think so? I can explain. So it's broader. Sometimes I'm unable to do these things past during working hours because people are coming to my office and going. And so when everybody closes and I'm here alone, I can stay here up to 8 o'clock.
Wow.
To make sure I've done a good review. I've looked at it. I trust my lawyers. I know they would always do a good review, but it's always good to have a second opinion. But apart from law, basically, law, I also do general management.
Yes.
So I take care of the staff in terms of their training programs, budgetary allocations for their training, both internal and external. And again, thankfully, my organization is big on training, very big on training. So we have every other year, every lawyer has to go for an overseas training, sometimes twice a year, sometimes once. We have local internal and local external. We have a training school in Akusi. And so I have to do all that arrangement, take care of their promotions, take care of reviewing everything that requires work to be done, not only for the lawyers, but for the other staff who are not lawyers. I have another 11 non-lawyers in the department. I do the managerial business. So generally speaking, that is my job. And I am the direct advisor to the executive and to the VRA board legally.
It's good that you mentioned the managerial aspects of being in the corporate space, because I find that now you're not in a firm where we are all lawyers, all doing our work and being promoted from junior associate, senior associate, maybe partner. But in the corporate space, it becomes a managerial function. Sometimes you're managing just one assistant, sometimes you're doing appraisals. Okay. You appraise yourself and you're appraising others, and then you're commenting on people's time of coming to work and things like that. So I find that managerial comes in, but we'll discuss the corporate lawyer as a manager subsequently. But now we still want to get to know Mr. Yalley and the kind of work he does. Mr. Yalley, when you started out as a junior lawyer or even mid-junior, what are some of the training or advice that you had to take from people, from your seniors?
Thankfully, I worked under some of the most experienced lawyers this country has ever produced. The first director of legal services I worked under, Mrs. Domachari, is he recently, only this year, retired as an appeal court of appeal judge. But before joining VRA, she was the deputy judge, commissioner, and one fantastic lawyer and great manager. So I worked under her. For her, when you present your job, at that time, we were not structured in 3 sessions. At that time, it was just her and the rest of us. So everybody did everything. When you presented your opinion, she will call you, sit you down, and talk to you about the opinion. And she will draw your mind to, have you averted your mind to this? Have you averted your mind to that? And she was a teacher and a mentor. She will teach you. She will tell you why this opinion cannot stand the test of time. And she will say it in a gentle way that you won't feel affronted in any way. And apart from her, I worked under another senior who was then the manager of our business. The late, may her soul rest in peace, the late Rachel Edumata Bempombuta, the daughter of the legendary Bempombuta, editor of the Supreme Court reports. Yes, she was another fantastic woman. I will follow her to court, and thankfully I'm a quick learner. So even as they reviewed my work and spoke to me and directed me, I picked it up very quickly. And I have a high achievement motivation. My energy, I like to stand out wherever I am. And so I will go the extra mile. Even when everybody had gone home, I will stay behind and go through the laws and pour through past files and other things just so I can learn very quickly. So I had good mentors. And now I'm trying to do the same for my subordinates. So basically that was it. That's how I went through the ranks, senior counsel, senior counsel, principal counsel.
You're lucky, Mr. Yalley. Some of us don't have seniors that we can learn from. Apart from our law firm practice, now we are finding our feet. But then the CEOs and other managers also help.
Thankfully, in today's day and age, you don't need to have the seniors in your office. You can consult wherever you are. WhatsApp, social media, everything, phones, you can always learn. We are always available to give you the little bit we know.
It may interest everybody listening that when Mr. Yalley said he likes to stand out, if you read his CV, there's a portion called Special Academic Awards. Yeah, he received awards in every school that he attended. Kudos, Mr. Yalley. We envy you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so you talk about litigation.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that it's one thing he enjoys. Not all of us corporate lawyers get a chance to go to court. Usually there's an external lawyer that it bounces off to. But you're lucky, you can share that experience with us doing litigation.
Thank you, Bridget. For me, my motivation to be a lawyer was the courtroom. In my mind, a lawyer, stricto sensu, is the one in wig and gown and babe, standing on his feet in court and testing his knowledge with that of another lawyer. That is my perception of a lawyer. So I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I mean, if you take me out of the courtroom, you have virtually clipped my wings.
Oh.
And even as I speak to you today, some of the cases I had to relinquish to my juniors because of the promotion, I still go to court with them, just to sit by and listen and feel a part of the litigation process. Interestingly, I started working in the legal services department as a litigation lawyer in the litigation unit. And I was there for quite a while before moving to power business. I love litigation, maybe because of my teaching background. When I'm on my feet, I see everybody in the courtroom, including the judge, as my student. So I am presenting my case as though I were teaching a lesson. Okay. So I say, my Lord, you would observe that in this case, it is said that this, I feel like I'm teaching. And so I love litigation. I love litigation, especially also because it's like studying, writing an exam, and waiting for your results. So you go argue it out in court and wait for judgment day. And when you win the case, you're happy. When you lose, you wonder what went wrong. You get the judgment, you study it, and if you think you must go on appeal, go on appeal. So I love litigation. I have done a lot of litigation for VRA. I think alone, I have handled about 38 cases for VRA before leaving the litigation section to the power business section. So I love litigation. You are right. Yes, litigation was my motivation for reading law, not sitting in the office and pushing pen. I didn't think when I wanted to read law that I would be sitting in the office pushing pen. Yeah,
that was one difficulty for me, because I knew that coming here would mean I won't be able to go to court anymore. So when I hear some people are in the corporate space and they get a chance to go to court, I'm happy for them. But I'm happy that you got to live the best of both worlds and to fully incorporate what we call to be a corporate lawyer fully. It's good that you have that experience.
Thank you.
Mr. Yalley, for you, what do you think is the best professional and personal skill that a person needs to succeed as a corporate lawyer?
First and foremost, legal expertise. You are employed not because of area skills, not because of any other skill, but because you're a lawyer. So your legal expertise must be strong. You must have a strong foundation in law.
Yeah.
Strong foundation, such that when you speak, people must respect your opinion. So one of the things you must have to be a good corporate lawyer is to have a solid legal a solid foundation in the law. But that's not all. Like I said, you need to stand out. You must have serious analytical and problem-solving skills. Because you see, in the corporate environment, you are to advise your clients to succeed. They have a problem, they want to solve it. They don't just want to know what the law says about their problem, but how can they resolve that problem? Interestingly, here in my organization, sometimes the problems they even bring to us are not legal problems. So I tell my colleagues, but this one is not management to be made. Why are they bringing it to us? So you must have high analytical intelligence. Your communication skills must be good. It's one thing knowing it, and another thing passing it on to others. So you must convince people that this position is the best position. And that means your communication skills, both verbal and written, must be very good. And one of the things, qualities that a corporate lawyer must have, of course, every lawyer must have it, but more with corporate lawyer is attention to detail. You know, I say in litigation, let me use litigation as an example. In litigation, if you make a slight mistake in your pleadings or submissions or whatever it is, you can always apply to the court for amendment. You know that.
Yeah.
You can always do that. You ask for leave of court to amend your pleading. But in the corporate world, you can't do that. Once you give the green light for your chief to sign and his signature is put on the paper,
yeah,
anything else would lead to, avoidable liabilities. So attention to detail is one other skill that a corporate lawyer must have. There are several of them, but I think from the top of my head is what I can say. Good foundation in the law, analytical and problem-solving skills, attention to detail, and of course, another thing too is that your ethical standards must be high, very high ethical standards, such that you can be trusted. I'll just give you one very typical example. I'm a storyteller, but I'll try this time not to tell too many stories. I'll tell you one of the cases I did. One of my very first cases I did for VRE. We called that case, we dubbed that case oil for food case. And it involved a VRE staff in a Nigeria position. And I won't go into the detail for very obvious reasons. Whilst the case was ongoing, I couldn't even get witnesses to go and testify on behalf of VRA because almost everybody was involved in the scandal one way or the other. So they didn't want to go and expose themselves. It was a very difficult case for them. But whilst the case was ongoing, the plaintiff was a staff who had been dismissed. The plaintiff was involved in the case, called me aside, and that plaintiff was a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine. When I joined VRN, I was a management trainee. I even slept in his house on one of our rotations. And the wife cooked for me. I ate the wife's fufu and pavlova soup. He called me aside and said, Yalley, this matter, I'm telling you, if only you would throw it, I'm willing to give you 800,000 cedis cash. He said, not 800,000 now, 800,000 cedis then, but it was big money. He says, I will sign the check for you, take it, cash the money before we finish this case. I told him, I nearly mentioned his name. I said, boy, I am not going to be able to do this for two reasons. One, because I'm a Christian and I'm accountable to God. I am not a church goer, I am a Christian. I cannot do this. Two, it will shatter my professional integrity because every lawyer has got only two things: your professional knowledge and your integrity. So if you're in an organization and you don't have those ethical standards, people cannot trust you, and they are not too sure if you can be, integrous, you are finished. You are finished. Chances of succession, promotion, being respected, because it's in big positions like director, legal, manager, this don't come to everybody. When it comes, you can only have one person at a time. And management will always pick the one, in spite of everything, who has integrity. So I think there are many more qualities, but from the top of my head is what I can can't.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the ethics and the integrity. You're right, because I know that one reason why they asked for a lawyer to come to this company, for instance, was give me a professional, hoping that the professional will have integrity, will have ethics. And so immediately you get here, they're giving you the keys to the board documents. You're in management meetings and they are making decisions. Are you going to go down and trickle down that information to staff, or you're going to keep a tight lip? So it's interesting that you would mention that. I think it really does come to the fore in the corporate space as well, along with all the others are equally important, but just harping on the last comments, ethics. That's very true. What about training? What about the courses that you think a corporate lawyer should take?
Yes, I mean, like I said, see, a corporate lawyer does a lot of things. And every business is out there to make profits and make money. So you cannot be happy with just knowing how to review contracts and do negotiations. One of the basic courses I recommend for all the lawyers in my department is corporate finance. Corporate finance. The bottom line of every business is money. So if you don't know how your company makes money and how to protect that money, because you say I'm a lawyer, I am not an accountant, so I don't have it I don't care about finance. You're not going to make it in the corporate world. So I encourage a lot of corporate finance. Of course, the normal issues of contracts and negotiations and all those ones also come into play, but corporate finance is key. And apart from corporate finance, every corporate lawyer must be a good negotiator. At the negotiating table, they would, to be honest, even your opponents respect the opinion of a lawyer. So your opinion must not be light. You must be a good negotiator. You must learn to listen and learn to find a middle ground for all situations. So negotiation skills is one of the things that I encourage all our lawyers to learn. I also encourage them to understand the commerce of things. I mean, in business, your place, you generate electricity, you sell. So commercial terms must be of great importance to you. There's standard where there are some boilerplate terms, but there are others that you can also customize. So commercial law should be of great interest to you, and commerce generally, something that you must learn. And for us, you and I, in this side of the equation, you cannot operate successfully if you are not an authority in energy law. I keep telling all my subordinates here that no, it will be a shame to you if anybody else in private practice knows more energy law than you, because they are not, I hardly will ever find a firm that says we specialize only in energy matters. But you specialize in only energy matters. So when it comes to energy law, if somebody wants to go and negotiate PSPA, sorry, we use a lot of terms here, but for the sake of those listed in, PSPA simply means Power Sales and Purchase Agreement. Okay. Somebody invites you, assuming you want to leave corporate practice and go to private practice. Somebody must be confident enough to say that this lady has been in the energy field. So I'm going to negotiate a PSPA. I want her to help. You must know everything about energy, the nuances, behind the scenes things, the energy law. And I sometimes try it on my subordinates. Sometimes they're not too happy about it. I can call you, or in the middle of any conversation, even a friendly conversation we're having, and ask you something about LI 1937. And I will expect that for you in the energy sector. When I say LI 1937, you know what I'm talking about? When I say the grid code, you know what I'm talking about? When I say the PURC Act, these are the laws we operate, the Renewable Energy Act, this amendment. You must be an expert. So these are the kind of courses that I encourage in my industry. But if you are not in the energy industry, then you must also be a specialist in whatever industry you are. If it's finance, you're in the banking industry, you should specialize. If you are in the insurance industry, to specialize. But there are some general ones that you must always learn. Corporate finance for me is key.
When you mentioned corporate finance, I remember when I first came here, the financial controller and the CEO were looking at the budgets, and I happened to chance upon them in the office. So I joined them and listening, and they say, "Give me this, open that," and they understood. Now I was jotting down the technical terms. I was totally lost. Not that I was invited in that meeting, but I said, no, these terms, I should know what they mean. I should seriously know what they mean. So I immediately went to HR and I said, please, enroll me in some training.
Have you ever sat in a meeting with engineers before? When I first joined this practice, I went to a meeting and I wondered, I was beginning to even regret why I decided to join the legal service department, because I was like lost. And yet everybody thought that because I was a lawyer, I should know about it. But the way in terms, I didn't know anything about the 10 key projects, this project here. It's a hell for a lawyer.
Shortfall gas and
no alternate gas, this thing, MMBTU.
Yes, MMBTU.
Like, what is happening here? And yet, the worst thing I would tell any lawyer never to do, and it's not pride, it's not ego. Don't say I don't know. A lawyer cannot say I don't know. Why are you calling it? In the eyes of the layman, you know everything. So I sat there with a cocky look on my face, pretending to understand. I didn't know one bit. And with time, over the years, it doesn't come easily. With time, now when they talk the engineering jargon, I can also talk. Now I'm comfortable and I can advise. So it comes with time.
That's nice to hear. Let me just pause and announce everybody that this webinar has been recorded. And also, please feel free to type anything you want in the chat box. And please feel free to send us feedback. We are really big on feedback. So Yalley, let's do boardroom experience now. For some corporate lawyers, they also do company secretariatship. Some don't. I'm coming from a place where in Track and we were big on company secretariatship. So I had those skills, minutes writing, boardroom dynamics. I had seen a lot of that, sitting by the chairman and things like that. But not everybody has that privilege. So some people probably are here and they are finding their first ever boardroom experience. What would you have to say? For you, what is the role of the company secretary in the boardroom?
Thank you. Before I answer that question, let me just say that here in VRA, we, apart from the VRA main board, we also have about 7 to 8 subsidiaries that have their own boards. And each of these subsidiaries have a board secretary appointed from the legal services department. So all those companies have board secretaries that are lawyers from the LSD. So every lawyer here is a board secretary to some organization. We have board secretarial experience. I myself, my first board secretarial experience was when I was appointed board secretary to one of our subsidiaries called VRA Property Holding Company. We call it PROPCO for short. This company was established in 2014, and I was appointed the board secretary. I have been the board secretary to date. It is only because of my elevation that I have appointed, and I've asked them to appoint an assistant board secretary. I won't mention her name, but the lady who introduced me to you,
yes,
and she's understudying me to take over. So we all try to, join board secretarial activities to our job. Now to your question, what is the duty? What are the roles of the company secretary,
especially in the board?
The company secretary, first of all, is the legal consultant to the board. In some boards, they appoint lawyers to assist, but fundamentally, the company secretary is the legal consultant. He is responsible for compliance. He or she is responsible, first of all, for compliance. The company secretary is ensure that the company operates in compliance with applicable law. So if decisions are being taken at that level that does not conform to law, it is the company secretary's duty to draw their attention. If there are certain things that the board has to do by way of filing some returns, etc., it's the company secretary that has to ensure that one. So, number one duty, compliance with the law. Another duty is to ensure corporate governance. You know, the Companies Act sets out how companies should be run and how good governance practices must be maintained. So he's the one who assists in preparing board meetings. You know, there are rules governing board meetings, notice periods, etc., etc. Resolutions, decisions that require ordinary resolutions, those that require special resolutions, and so on and so forth. So the company secretary is responsible for all those governance issues. As for the board chairman, he wants a meeting, he says it, and you call the meeting. He doesn't know whether it is in compliance with the law or not. You have to tell him that if we cannot have the meeting tomorrow because the law requires that we give a certain number of days, or otherwise, when we go for the meeting, the first resolution that has to be passed, the resolution to waive the requirement for notice, and so on and so forth. The company secretary, of course, offers support to the board. The company's board minutes of the board, he helps and facilitates communication between the board chair, the managing director, and the board members. You know, sometimes if you have been to this practice for a while, sometimes there are serious personality challenges between the board chairman and the managing director. There are times they are not even on good talking terms.
Yes.
So if you coordinate with only the managing director and prepare the agenda without informing the board chair, trouble. You cannot also just work with the board chair without the managing director. So you have to coordinate. You go to the board chair, so say, what are you doing? Then you go to the managing director. He says, no, but this one we've discussed already. It's not an item that should put on the agenda. You don't say the board chair says it should. You have a way of making it look like the idea is coming from you. So coordinating and ensuring that everything goes on. The company secretary is also responsible for record keeping and documentation. All company records must be kept such that when auditors, external auditors, internal auditors, whatever requirements,
they're coming for minutes for the whole year.
Whatever, you must have them all ready and recorded. And you are, like I said from the beginning, you are the legal consultant to the company. So sometimes in the middle of the discussion, they stop and they say, so Mr. Yalley, what do you think about this? And when I first went with my colleague as assistant board secretary, after the first meeting, he said, hey, is this what you're going to leave for me? So I didn't come prepared for this question. So if you are not here and they had asked, what will I have done? I said, that is why I'm not going to let you take over immediately. They're going to understudy me for a year or more. Thankfully, she has understudied me for close to 3 years. So now she's comfortable. Because out of the blue, they can ask you a question. And I forgot to add one of the qualities of a good corporate lawyer. You must be able to think on your feet. And that is also good for a litigation lawyer. I'm sure I learned it from litigation. Because you can't tell a judge that, my lord, I have not averted my mind to this position, so give me time to go and think about it. No, you have to think on your feet. So you are the legal advisor, whatever issues that come up. So you see the agenda, you must start wondering, thinking about what are the possible legal issues that may come out of this. And then you prepare. Oh, there are several other things, but for the sake of time, I'll limit.
Yalley, what should you never do? In case this is your first time, you have all these things at the back of your mind. What should you never do as a corporate lawyer, as the company secretary in the boardroom?
You should never express, you are not a member of the board, remember. You are not a member of the board. I don't know of any company where the company secretary is a member of the board. Never express an opinion without first seeking leave of the board chair. Not anybody else, but the board chair. And if you want to express a contrary opinion to the board chair or the managing director, couch it in such a language that it will not be obvious that the opinion is a contrary opinion. But never jump into the fray when there's a debate on an issue and say, well, I do not agree with that position. I think that we can do it this way. No, never do that. always remind yourself that you are not a member of the board. If they need your opinion, they will ask you. If you feel so pressed, so desirous to intervene because they are going in a way that is not right, then you will seek leave of the board chair to draw their attention. It must be on a matter of law. It must be on a matter of law only. As for the decision they are making, you're not a member, you stay away. You can slip a note to the board chair or slip a note to the managing director or any of the other board members, but you don't have to intervene. You don't do that.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about managers too, then I'll fuse them and ask you a certain question. Okay. What about being a member of management? So now you have other colleague managers, you have human resource, you have convention, you have finance, depending, you have the CEO, and you are now attending management meetings. Sometimes you may take minutes. I have a friend, she said she cleverly declined because her table was full. She said, as for management meetings, somebody else can take those minutes. I'm not doing that because her table was already full. So we are taking minutes sometimes, we're doing all of this. What would be the role of the corporate lawyer then in that space? And then what advice would you give to somebody if they are being ignored by management or they are being left out by management, the decisions that are being taken?
Thankfully, in the organization where I work, we are not isolated.
Okay.
That is, it's not as if because you are lawyers, they are just lawyers. I don't play any role in management. Thankfully, we have the same structure as we have with all the other 21 departments. There are 22 departments, and the legal services department is one of the 22. So we have the tanker services department, the hydro generation department, thermal generation, several departments, 22. And each of these departments are headed by a director. Okay. So once you get to the director position, you are part of management. And so when there's when there are management meetings, management retreats, you are there. Here, we are so much respected, our opinion is so much respected that whenever we have a management retreat, you can be sure that the directors are saying, I hope they don't give me any speaking assignment. I hope I don't have to do any presentation. I hope if you are lucky, you escape. The director legal can never escape doing a presentation at any of our management retreats. So you are part of management. They will always ask your opinion on something, and there will always be some legal issues that will come up for discussion. We had a recent management retreat in January of this year, February of this year, and we had done a legislative review. I'll talk about that one later on the Income Tax Amendment Act here, and most of the management had not averted its mind to the fact that under our Act 46, the Volta River Development Act at 46, we were exempt from corporate income tax.
Okay, it's an issue. It's an issue. Even IPPs went for a meeting.
We were exempt from corporate income tax. Our law clearly spells it out that we don't pay corporate income tax. Then this amendment comes, and this amendment says that except as stated in this section, all other laws that exempt institutions from corporate income tax have been revoked. And they mentioned only about 3 laws, which did not include Act 46. The necessary implication was that the exemption given to us under Act 46 has been revoked. So we had to quickly look at the Amendment Act to find out what were we going to do, because already we're struggling in financing. If you have to pay corporate income tax, which is close to about 35% of our end, then that is something serious. But we found out somewhere that the Amendment Act itself allows us to apply to the Minister of Finance for exemption. And when we had that meeting, we had only 30 days to do so. So immediately after the retreat, we quickly went. The long and short is that we are involved at that level in management because you are a director, not even because you're alive, because you're a director, and your opinion is valued. We are also very much involved in labor issues when it comes to negotiations. We have what we call a joint consultative council meeting where management and staff meet to negotiate conditions of service. there should be, I think the whole team is made up of 7 directors. And there are 22 directors. But every time the director legal is an automatic member of that standing committee. So thankfully, unlike in some places, we are directly involved in decision making, apart from the law. And we also have managers who also can aspire to other. In fact, we can diversify. A colleague of ours just left our department and applied for a managerial position in the real estate department and got it. And it is possible, unfortunately, I'm retired and on contract. It is possible for the director legal to even be appointed deputy chief executive or chief executive. So you have the career progression opportunities, etc., etc. We are not stifled mainly because we are. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yes, please, you have. But I also want to seriously ask, what do you tell somebody who is struggling with a difficult board or difficult management? I had a friend who she was in a bank. So she said what she used to do was she would send an email that these decisions you're taking, these are the repercussions, or I disagree, they go contrary to the law. She'll send an email across just so if ever anything backfired, she would be safe. What would you say for people, or sometimes, these boardroom, one director is fighting with the board chairman, or the board chairman is trying to, a friend of mine recently, majority was trying to push out minority shareholders. What advice would you give to a company secretary or a corporate lawyer who's stuck in this tough tug of war or difficult management? They're ignoring your advice.
I will start by saying that many years ago, I read a book titled Managing Your Boss. Okay. Managing Your Boss. And I think that all this boils down to the individual human personality. It's a working environment, rules and policies are there all right, but the human interaction is very important. I used to have a director, and I'm sure if any of my colleagues in the office are listening, they'll know who I'm talking about. I used to have a director when I was way down, even before manager, who anytime any lawyer or staff leaves her office, there's a frown on their face. Some of the women will even come out in tears.
Oh dear.
Anytime I am in there with her, they hear us laugh out loud. They can hear us laugh out loud there. And then they would ask, Sally, what is it about you that as for you alone, when you get there, you are laughing, is she your friend or something? I said, no. I read a book called Managing Your Boss, so I know what to do. That lady, when she makes an opinion, she provides an opinion, and you oppose it, you're in trouble. So if I have to oppose the opinion, the first thing I do, well, madam, I am so amazed about this. Your position is fantastic. So I think that is the way to go. It's brilliant. But can we look at it this other way? If we see, and then once you tell her position is the best, you have this armchair. Or I just go over and say, madam, are you celebrating something? You're looking very special. The pearly necklaces. You see, because people don't like her, they don't try to flatter her. So she's like, really, Sally? And she would laugh, and then whatever you're saying, she will not oppose you. So you must learn to manage. I said at the beginning that if you have a difficult or you have a strained relationship between, say, the board chair and the managing director, you manage them separately. You go to them. You listen to them. If you are lucky, you can find the root cause of the problem. Never get involved in the problem and never take sides. And never confidentiality, our profession is all about confidentiality. Was between whether it was between the managing director and the board chairman or between board members. Talk to them individually, play Mr. Nice Guy, and get them to move, change their positions, not get stuck in one position against the other. I mean, human relations is important in situations like this.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Yalley, we have a couple of questions.
Very well.
One is asking, would an MBA be a relevant training for a corporate lawyer or simply just training in corporate finance?
Well, I don't think that you need the full scope of the MBA to be a good corporate lawyer. I mean, if you want to do it, you have the time, fine, but it is not the entire, thank you. It's not the entire course that will help. I mean, I would rather do short courses on corporate finance, management, leadership, those things than go for the full MBA. I mean, it's useful, but I'm not sure it's a requirement.
Okay, and then Yalsafo wants to know, he's talking about licenses and certifications that you have to keep current. Some are yearly, some are biannual. These fire service, EMP, these other regulations. Some are lengthy, like the license in our case, from Energy Commission. It's a lengthy one. But I think stretching is also, what about contracts, contract management generally? Next thing you know, you've missed the deadline to renew a certain contract, or even if you want to terminate, the timeline for termination. So I think he's generally asking about managing these timelines. What advice do you have?
Let me start with the contracts before we come to the other aspects of managing some of these timelines and things. Here we have one person, whole officer dedicated to contract administration. And we have what we call a contracts register. We have a software application designed by our MIS department for that purpose. Every contract we enter into, it's loaded onto that application, what you call the contract register. It will talk about the parties to the contract, when the contract was entered into or became effective, the conditions precedent, the main highlights of the main terms, the expiration, actions to be taken on expiration, etc. It's there. And it has alerts. 3 months before the end of each contract, an alert goes by way of an email to the client department. I told you our clients are departments. So every contract is managed by a particular department. So it can be the engineering department who are responsible for projects. It can be the finance department responsible for loan agreements. It can be the thermal department responsible for thermal generation contracts. It can be even the commercial services department responsible for the sale, all the PSPs, PEAs, PSAs, etc., etc. So once it's there, and the contract administrator is monitoring those contracts all the time. So there's no room. We take contract management very seriously. Okay. So because of that application, there's no room for any contract to expire without knowing what to do. 3 months expiration, the client department and ourselves, we are informed. Then we find out from the client department what they want to do. They want to renew, they want to amend, they want to innovate, whatever they want to do. So that's how we resolve that problem, because we have a lot of ongoing contracts. There are a lot of them. If you want to look at them manually, some might fall through the cracks. So that's what we do. We have a contract register, which is not just a register, it's a software application that gives us all the information. So today, if you ask me, you want some information about any contract, I don't have to go and look for the hard copy contract and run through. I just go to the contract register. And there are people who have the authorization to access the register. You can't touch it. You can't touch it. You can't, amend or do anything, but you can see it and follow it and develop it. That is for the contract, how we manage our contracts. Generally speaking, we have an approach to ensuring compliance with all regulations and policies in the area. We have something we call the focal point persons meeting. It is one of the key performance areas for every lawyer in the department, doesn't matter which section you belong to do what we call legislative monitoring. We review both existing and new those that affect the operations of the authority of my organization. And then we highlight compliance issues in them and forward them to the relevant authorities. Sometimes we organize legal education for them. Recently, we did one on, I think, data protection, etc., etc. Whatever law that has any relevance to, whether it's labor law for HR, whether it's data compliance, data protection, whether it's RTI, I mean, right to information, whether it's our energy laws, we do a review with the intention of highlighting what are the compliance issues or the issues that management needs to see. And then we send it, copies to the executive, the chief and his 3 member chiefs, the deputy chiefs, and we copy the department that is responsible for that activity. We don't leave it at that. Every quarter, every 3 months, every department has a focal point person who is also copied in that report.
Okay.
And it is his duty to ensure that the department complies. Every 3 months or every quarter, all these focal point persons meet. Thankfully, this time, because of technology, we do it online. We meet to discuss the reports we have sent to them and the challenges they are facing with compliance. And then they will let us know, and if there's a way to advise them. So all these things like the licenses that have to be displayed, there are rules that require
yes, fire service,
fire service should display them, etc. We highlight them and tell them this is what you have to do. So at the focal point persons meetings, we tell you, have you done that? Say you have done that. It's expiring this time. Have you noticed that one? Etc. 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 What are the challenges you're encountering in complying with the requirements of the law regarding this? Because we have done our bit, we have highlighted it, and we have showed you how to comply. I told you in the beginning that our job is to ensure that our organization is compliant with the laws and regulations relevant to our operations. So we do that, we review. In fact, if any lawyer in this department does not review at least 2 laws per quarter, you are joking with your end of year bonus. But that is our job. We don't just sit here doing that. And sometimes we even do further reviews. You have reviewed it once, but somebody else can review and find out something that you missed.
Yes.
So we do a lot of these things. And that's how come we're able to cope with ensuring that these licenses and requirements and things are complied with and we don't miss any of them.
Thank you both for your questions. This is my 3rd conversation with you, Mr. Yalley, and my sheet is full. I'm still writing. I'm still taking notes. So for contract management, definitely go digital because it would be easier. And then you get the links and the alerts so that you're not missing timelines and deadlines. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Let's talk about the perceptions and maybe misconceptions about the corporate lawyer. It's usually perceived as the lazy routes, the easier way out, the less stressful routes, the money routes. Let's talk about these things. Are they unwarranted? Are they unfounded? If somebody says that the corporate lawyer is usually the not too active person because they're not as busy, in quotes, as the law firms are.
Have you, thank you very much, Bridget. Let me just give you this analogy. Have you ever driven on the way and then a commercial vehicle driver thinks that you are not driving well and you are going too fast, the traffic light is green and you are not moving. And then when you complain, he tells you, you are driving at your leisure. He is driving to make money, so you cannot waste his time. People think that the private firms are out there to make money, and you pay us, you earn us.
Yes.
You are paid as you earn. And so it's like they do more work, they are more conscientious, they are more serious. As for you, there's sleepless nights, etc. As for you, a salaried worker, and so whether you work or not, you are paid, and so you are lazier, you are more relaxed. I think, well, I don't have too much experience with other organizations, but if I have to use my organization as an example, I think it's a myth. Nothing can be further from the truth than this as far as our organization is concerned. You know that we are a very big organization, staff strength close to 4,000. We span from Adan to Zoalungu.
Wow.
So yes. So an organization as big as that, so even if you have to deal with disciplinary issues, you can imagine the number of disciplinary issues that we deal with every time. And here, nobody will be disciplined for any offense without a committee being set up and a lawyer on the committee to advise. You know, PSPs. We have PSPs with Togo. In fact, two companies, Togo, CB and CET, with Benin, SBE, with Burkina Faso, Sonabel, with CIE and C Energies in Ivory Coast. We have PSPs with several organizations, even within the country. And so even if you are negotiating PSPs and you are reviewing PSPs and you are transacting financial agreements and one of our major problems, compensation claims. We have acquired land by EI all across the country, some of which have still not been paid. We run lines all over the country and have several issues. I mean, we are so overwhelmed with work that I just came out of, before this meeting, I came out of a branch meeting, the services branch meeting. Our departments are at the services branch. And I was telling my boss that I think we need more lawyers. We need at least 5 more. And I'm trying to justify why we need more lawyers, because we are inundated with work. Can you imagine me sitting here and having to review work done by 10 lawyers on my desk? Would you ever say that I am lazy, I don't have work to do? People, sometimes I leave the office, the earliest I leave the office is 7 p.m. every day.
Wow.
So in spite of the fact that, and I've told you that our performance is linked with our bonuses. So if you don't hit a certain standard, you don't get bonus. Our rewards are performance-based. So our lawyers keep complaining to me that they are overworked. And what I keep telling them is that, the reward for hard work is more work.
Yeah.
The reward for hard work is more work. Because see, if I'm hot and I need someone to review something for me very quickly, I will give it to the person who I know will
most efficient.
I handle and do it. I won't give it to the person who will at 4 o'clock shut off the computer and go home. And so if you want to stand out, like I have always wanted to stand out anywhere I go, you would have to do the extra work. I'll end this discussion with just one real life incident that happened to me. When my former director was about to retire, in every year, we have a meeting, budget meeting, and then the director, together with the managers, allocates funds for overseas training. So after the meeting, everybody knows who is traveling overseas that year. That year, I think it was 2013 or 2012. We had this meeting, and the director had nominated 2 people to go for the overseas training. So we all knew who was going to go for the overseas training. That was somewhere in February, but she was going to retire in April. Okay. So I think middle of April. So towards the end of March, she called. She sent the secretary to come and call me. And when she called me, I said, "Oh, not again. Coach, you have already given me, I've not even finished." And I know once she calls me, she's going to add more work. And you are calling me again. When I got out of my office, I saw the lead reader also from the office. They said, "The director is calling me too." I said, "Oh, really? What have you done?" So I said, "Well, maybe she's going to put this on some project, some negotiation team or something." As soon as we got there, she said, "Yalley and Rita, you know what? It's just occurred to me that I'm retiring next month." And I realized that the 2 of you are those that I could rely on mostly to do all the donkey work for me. I know sometimes I overwork you, and that's what she told, but the reward for hard work is more work. So I think that the only thing I can do for you as a final show of appreciation, that I've changed my mind. The 2 people I said were going to travel overseas are not going to do it anymore. I'm going to give it to the 2 of you. So you see, you are working, you think nobody's watching, she's seeing. So corporate lawyers, unless you don't want to apply yourself to it, it's an individual thing. If you want to apply yourself to it, we sometimes can even work harder and have more work than even those in private practice. At least that is what I know. And I'm sure, especially for you, being the only lawyer in your organization, I'm sure you're inundated with work.
It has its highs and lows. There are sometimes that it's
calm, sometimes.
And sometimes it's pressing.
But our place here is such that where there are lows, then we get the sections that have highs.
Okay.
Those that have lows to support those that have highs. As for the private section, it is always high. It's always high. The corporate matters section can get a little low, so we then pass on some of the work to the corporate matters section. So everybody has a balanced effect, and there's nobody sitting down doing nothing or doing very little. There's no doctor do little here.
That's good to hear. We've done quite a lot of what you and I discussed that we will teach today. We'll do the mentoring advice as the last thing before we are done. So for now, I will take a few more questions that have come into the chat box. Today, I'm being ably assisted by Ms. Irene Derry. So she read some of the questions for me. She read them as it comes, and then you can help us answer them.
Very well.
Okay, Mr. Yalley, I must say that this is a very, very, very interesting and impactful conversation. Thank you so much for your time. We have a question.
I'm blushing.
We have a question from Patience Akoni. So what are the soft skills that in-house lawyers need to have? Often I hear about lawyers coming from private practice into the corporate space, needing soft skills. So this is one of the questions that we have. I don't know if we are going to, do you want me to take another question or would answer this one before I move on to the next one, Mr. Yalley?
Well, I'm an old man, so I forget easily. So let me take one after the other. Let me finish with this one.
Okay, sure.
Very, very briefly. You know, there's this perception, I don't know whether it's a perception, some people, I think sometimes can be a reality, that lawyers are standoffish, they are haughty, they are full of themselves, their ego is high. Some of our colleagues here even say that about us. I remember last 2 years, we organized and they said they were surprised to see lawyers in jeans and t-shirt dancing. They thought that we don't even dance, we are not friendly, we are standoffish, etc., etc. And so for a lawyer in the corporate space, one of the soft skills you must learn, and if you don't have it, you must learn it consciously, is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. Apart from your academic stuff, your professional stuff, you must learn how to comport yourself. The fact that somebody has said something outrageous to you doesn't mean you must put that person in his or her place. You must learn how to control your own emotions so as to be able to control the other person's emotions. So emotional intelligence, if you ask me, is the major soft skill that any lawyer in the corporate space must learn, because already people think you are egoistic, you are snobbish, you are starting with a minus in that regard. So you must learn to overcome that perception first, and reach out to others. Then and only then will they take your advice seriously. Otherwise, no matter what you say, I mean, I can insult you without you knowing I'm insulting you. And I can praise you and you will think I insulted you. So emotional intelligence, that comes top of my head.
Thank you.
So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's also another question from Anne. How do you manage recording of minutes as a company secretary when the recording is mainly done manually?
Good. That's a good one. In fact, if you record manually, you are most likely to encounter problems. Reason being that human beings are who they are and above, and most of my board members are that age. You can present something, they tell you we did not say that. Oh,
yes, Yalley. Happens
a lot. Yeah, you can identify that not so. Yeah. They will tell you categorically we did not say that. So it would be suicidal to just rely on manual record. We record our meeting, and everybody at the meeting knows that it's being recorded. So that's the first thing. We record our meetings from. If it's to be, off air, they will say it. We tell them to say it out loud that this is off record. So even though it is recorded, we will not put it in minutes. So we record the minutes and then we come back, play it and play it back and put down. Apart from the manual taking down of points as it goes on, take down points, we come back and then as we write the minutes, we always go back to the recorded version to find out what exactly was said. So at any given meeting, when anybody says, no, that is not what we said, then we just go for the recording, play it back, and then they hear it with their own 2 ears.
Mr. Yalley, but what if they don't want to record it?
They don't want recording. I'd be surprised why they wouldn't want recording, but if they don't want recording, then the risk is on them to take your word for it. You let them know clearly that, well, the reason why you're recording is just so that you get an accurate version, such that when you go wrong, you can always fall back on it. If they don't want recording, then you let them know clearly that the risk is on them. What it means is that then they will take your word for it. Whatever you say they said is what they said. But I've not met a like that before. So.
But to ask you, do I ask this question in the boardroom that I want to record, or I discuss this with MD or board chairman outside the board?
Yes, you discuss it. You know, these things are negotiated. You discuss it outside the boardroom, especially the board chair. You say, for this reason, you want to record, we negotiate it. And the board chair is the most important person in the boardroom. Okay. So what he says, he has a veto power, you know that.
Yes.
So you discuss the MD first. And if you are not lucky, there's always some rivalry, some power play, some, you know, territorial fighting for territory. Yeah. So you have to play them very carefully. So you talk to the managing director. You don't let him know that you have already spoken to the chair and this kind of thing. And then when you have their buy-in at the meeting, when anybody objects to it, they will speak for it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Yalley. I have a question on that. Do you consider it unethical to record without asking their permission? So it means that you always need to ask for permission before recording.
Absolutely unethical. Absolutely unethical. Bordering on illegal. But you see, you don't have to, you need to get a standing order for this. Right from the beginning of when you join the board, you let them know, negotiate between the board chair and the MD or CE what has to be done. And that will be cleared at the first meeting. So everybody knows that subsequently all our meetings are recorded. So for the boards that I'm on, all they know the meetings are recorded. So before we even start, I mean, the board chair will wait for me. If the recorder is not ready, you'll wait till we are all set before he starts talking. So you don't have to do it every time, but you must get a standing order. But it's absolutely unethical if you record them without their.
Thank you very much. I think Patience has a follow-up question to that. She wants to know whether do we have to inform them at every single meeting, or the first approval suffices for the rest of the meetings? I think you touched on that.
You need to let them know that the recording will not be just for that meeting, but that it would be the practice of the board to record all meetings. So you have and it's recorded or somewhere. And once you have that approval, it's a standing order. It carries through until you cease to be a board secretary. You don't have to ask every meeting, no.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a comment here, but it would be helpful to get your contribution or your comments on this as well, Mr. Yalley. So thanks Bridget for this opportunity. This is from Frederick Sampson, Esquire. Thanks Bridget for this opportunity. How does he relate with his subordinates? I think he refers to Mr. Yalley. He seems to be a people person and is admirable. But to this perception, having experienced the two worlds, it's never true that the corporate space is for the lazy or stress-free practitioners. Unfortunately, we've been wired to think that litigation is the only thing in law practice. I agree, and I think you've also touched on it in your earlier discussion as well.
Yes, I think that I was freer. I had a little bit even more time when I was in litigation than in public. I'm telling you. So anybody thinks that litigation is more stressful than any other aspect of the practice is not true. But talking about how I relate with my subordinates, I think that as for that, you would need to talk to them to find out how I relate to them. But I can assure you, I have a very open door policy. I walk into their offices, and if they are eating and I feel like I want to be a part of it, I join them without asking. And they do the same. That's how close we are. We are all lawyers. It's only by way of organization, governance, that somebody must be manager and somebody must be a director, but they know that they can. My friend who introduced me to Bridget would walk into my office, sometimes not even greet, open my fridge and pick out a box of fruit juice and walk away without telling me. And
Mr. Yalley, I must visit you.
and I don't know, I mean, I just look at her and then she walks off. That's it. So that's how close we are. And I query them and they don't even know it's a query because it's done in a manner that is human. So ask them, if you know any of them, just find out from them how does Mr. Yalley relate. So that's my comment for what you just read, Irene.
It's been such a fruitful discussion, even more than I thought. For someone who's spoken to you about 3 times already and made notes, I'm still making notes. Thank you. I think everybody has been blessed. So we'll end with you giving us typical mentoring advice. You spoke about making yourself stand out all the time. And we can glean things that you did to make yourself stand out, staying late, going the extra mile, reading more. What would you have to tell the young corporate lawyer, the growing corporate lawyer, the young lady or young man in law school about to complete? Because now some people are moving straight to corporate. Initially, you used to see them do a bit of firm, then migrate to corporate. What advice would you have to give to the young budding corporate lawyer?
I will just tell you what a lecturer, a teacher of mine told me, that the law is a jealous profession and will not share you with anybody else. So the moment you decide to enter into a relationship with the learned law, you have sentenced yourself a lifetime of studentship or readership forever. If you are not interested in reading and improving yourself by way of studying, then the law is not for you. Go find something else to do.
Thank you for joining the Lawyers in the Corporate Space webinar. You've just been listening to Mr. Francis Yalley, and he spoke about the career and growth of the in-house lawyer. We hope you learned something today that will make you more effective in your output at work. Please follow, like, and share for more webinars like this.